So week 1 of the NFL preseason is now in the books. Obviously weeks 2 and 3 of that preseason are on TV today and upcoming next week. But I wanted to give you guys today some things that I was taking away from those week 1 games for Dynasty Fantasy Football, hopefully giving you guys some things to think about and maybe some moves to make. So in today's video, I have one takeaway from each of those games. So let's just hop right into it, starting with game 1, which was the Indianapolis Colts and the Baltimore Ravens. Now, to me, in this game, it was very clear to see that Keaton Mitchell is going to be the handcuff for Derrick Henry. If he is healthy, which it seems like he might have a little bit of an undisclosed injury right now, he should be the guy that has the efficiency, has the upside in this backfield to be that premium handcuff. Obviously, we know how good Baltimore is in the run game. So if anything happens to Derrick Henry this year, Keaton Mitchell is definitely the guy to own, and that stood out to me here in that game. Now, game 2, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Philadelphia Eagles. The thing that I noticed was that Chase Brown could be a dark horse candidate for that running back 1 overall ranking in PPR formats. Now, through the 2 drives that Chase Brown played, he had 8 touches. 3 of those were receptions in the receiving game. So this is a player where if they continue to use him that much, I do think he has some sneaky upside in those PPR leagues and really is a dark horse RB1 candidate. Game 3, looking at the Las Vegas Raiders and the Seattle Seahawks. This game, it was all about Tory Horton. Tory Horton, he looks legit. I do think he's trending to be a week 1 starter in this offense over a guy like Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And I do think the ceiling is fairly high for a guy like Horton if something were to happen to Cooper Kupp or JSN. So he's a player that I'm going to be keeping my eye on as the preseason progresses because I do think he's trending to be a week 1 starter. Now, going on to game 4, looking at the Detroit Lions and the Atlanta Falcons, I think there wasn't as many takeaways from this game, but Isaac TeSlaa did stand out just a little bit. I think he should be able to carve a role alongside Amon-Ra St. Brown and alongside Jameson Williams in this passing attack. That would be a starting role over Tim Patrick. Now, what is that going to look like as far as target volume and fantasy football production along those guys? I don't know. It's going to be hard to kind of command targets over those guys with that target competition, but he did have some flashes in this game. Moving on to the Cleveland Browns and the Carolina Panthers, obviously the Shedeur Sanders game where a lot of people saw him ball out, but also Tetairoa McMillan is a player that stood out to me. I think this is a player who's going to see 130 plus targets as a rookie. He's going to become Bryce Young's go-to target in this offense, and I think it's going to put him in elite company as far as rookie targets go. He's a player that I'm definitely very excited about this year. Going on to game 6, the Washington Commanders at the New England Patriots. Treveyon Henderson's home run speed was on display. Obviously, it is a key part of what we liked about him in the rookie draft process, but I do think he has Gibbs-like traits. Yes, Jahmyr Gibbs-like traits as far as that home run athleticism goes. He's going to have a chance to score anywhere on the football field at any given point in time, anytime he touches the football. So that's a player that I think is going to just move up draft boards already just off of a few touches alone that we saw there in the preseason. And I think that's going to give him a rare ceiling that not many running backs have in dynasty leagues. Looking at game 7, the Houston Texans and the Minnesota Vikings, I thought JJ McCarthy played pretty well in his 1 drive that he got of playing time. He moved the ball well. He showed some rushing upside that is definitely going to be a trait that the Vikings didn't have in a guy like Sam Darnold last year. So it does give him a little bit more fantasy football upside as well. I think it's still up in the air whether or not he's going to be a huge contributor for fantasy football teams in his first year as a starter here in 2025, but I did think we got a solid start out of JJ McCarthy in that 1 drive that we got to watch him. Moving on to game 8, where we had the New York Giants at the Buffalo Bills. To me, this one was all about Jaxson Dart. He displayed a little bit of that rushing upside that we like to see for fantasy football purposes. Obviously, that's kind of a trait that Jaxson Dart had that I thought separated him a little bit from some of the competition in this year's draft class. Also, I thought it was impressive considering he was primarily running with the 2s in this offense. I think he just has so much more to offer than guys like Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, and I truly do believe that he ends up becoming the starting quarterback for the Giants before Thanksgiving this year. Game 9, the Dallas Cowboys at the Los Angeles Rams. Jarquez Hunter and Blake Corum seem to be in a true battle for the running back 2 job behind Kyren Williams. We did have Hunter out carry Corum, but Corum got 2 goal line carries that translated into 2 scoring opportunities for him, so he got into the end zone twice. I think it's worth monitoring how things go over the course of the next 2 weeks of preseason to see who truly does win this running back 2 job behind Kyren Williams. Game 10, the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Travis Etienne was the starting running back for the Jaguars next to Trevor Lawrence, and he finished the day when TeSlaa and the starters were done playing, so it does seem like he has the early lead on the running back 1 role here in Jacksonville, at least temporarily. So that being said, the backfield is still a mess. It's something that I think is very murky. Behind him, obviously, Tank Bigsby and Bayshall too. And could those guys jump Etienne on the depth chart? Could there be a trade? Could there be a bunch of other things? Absolutely, this backfield is a mess, but at least Travis Etienne showed that he was running with the ones in preseason action. Game 11, the Tennessee Titans at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Calvin Ridley stood out to me. He seemed to be the go-to target for Cam Ward. He was looked at very early, very often. He was picking up some chunk yardage type of plays as the wide receiver one here for the Tennessee Titans. I think if you are a contending Dynasty Fantasy Football roster and you're looking for some production, I'd be trying to scoop him up for those second-round draft pick prices that we've seen him go for this offseason, because I don't think he's going to be valued as a second-round pick much longer. Game 12, the New York Jets and the Green Bay Packers. Braylon Allen is the player that stood out the most in this game. He's obviously been receiving a lot of praise throughout the offseason by this new Jets staff. They've talked about how they want to use him kind of as a 1B in this offense, and in the preseason game, it clearly showed. He's going to be one of the best handcuffs in football behind Breece Hall, and I think he's going to have a standalone role in this offense as well, so he's definitely somebody who stood out to me when watching these games. Game 13, the Kansas City Chiefs at the Arizona Cardinals. Trey Benson has been rumored to potentially have a larger role in this offense going into his second year of his NFL career, and it looked like it might actually be coming true. James Conner is still the number one, the clear guy here for me in this backfield, but obviously Conner's age and some of the injury history that he has is a little bit of a red flag for him, so Benson could be one of the most valuable handcuffs, and if he does get a larger role here alongside Conner, he could have some flex play potential in a decent offense here for the Arizona Cardinals. Game 14 was the Denver Broncos and the San Francisco 49ers. To me, it was Jordan Watkins who stood the most out. It's an interesting name to watch because the 49ers are dealing with a ton of injuries, obviously with Juwan Jennings. You have Ricky Pearsall, who was banged up earlier in the preseason, but he seems like he's fine right now. And then you have Brandon Ayuk recovering from the ACL tear. If anybody is going to carve out a role in this offense, I think people would point to Demarcus Robinson, but Jordan Watkins has been having a good camp. People have been talking about his name, so he's a player that I would pick up and stash just to see what happens over the next couple of weeks, because he was the leading wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers in this first preseason game. Game 15, the Miami Dolphins at the Chicago Bears. Jaylen Wright and Ollie Gordon II could be a little bit more of a competition for that RB2 role than I think we had originally thought. Obviously, all signs pointed to Jaylen Wright being the first guy there. He ran with the 2s while Ollie Gordon ran with the 3s. But really, when it came down to production on the football field in that first preseason game, Jaylen Wright did not outperform Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon was actually more efficient. Both of these guys got into the end zone. Now, it is worth noting that Ollie Gordon was running against the 3s, like I mentioned, so a little bit weaker competition. But this is something I'm going to be keeping my eye on, because while I still prefer Jaylen Wright over Ollie Gordon, it's not out of the range of outcomes that Ollie Gordon carves out a role in this offense and in this running game for the Miami Dolphins. And now the last game on the slate, it was the New Orleans Saints at the Los Angeles Chargers. It's Trey Lance to me that stands out for the Chargers. In the Hall of Fame game, he looked good. In the second game, he looked pretty good as well. So it seems to me that he has a clear hold on the quarterback 2 job behind Justin Herbert. Maybe he's worth a pickup if he's on the waiver wire in your leagues in Superflex formats. If it's not a Superflex format, I'm obviously not looking at Trey Lance, but he could be an interesting piece in deeper leagues where if there was an injury to Justin Herbert, Trey Lance would have some intrigue in those formats because of the rushing upside alone, and maybe could be used as trade bait later down the road. So there you have it, real quick, real clean, trying to get you guys takeaways from every game that we saw there in week 1. We'll hopefully try to do the same thing here in weeks 2 and week 3 of the NFL preseason, trying to keep you guys up to date with all of the most recent information as we're getting all of this new information throughout the preseason. As always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We appreciate you guys supporting this show. With that said, I have nothing else for you guys today, so I will see you on our next episode. Until then, peace out.